Shivakumar GV. He is a scholar in residence INDICA, and he is also, like many other speakers from the IT field. He is an IT professional with a deep interest in Bharatiya Sanskriti. His special areas of interest are Mahabharata and Rig Veda. He writes on Mahabharata regularly at INDIC today. He is deeply interested in understanding the Bharatiya Idihasa, Purana, Tattva Shastra, and civilizational changes faced by Bharatiya Parampara. He firmly believes that our Chaturvida Purushartha holds a perspective that shapes every aspect of human life, very different from modernity. Currently, he is in a research grant from Indic Academy to study history of creative liberty in Bharatiya Parampara. Apart from this, he is passionate about Kannada literature from its classical to the present times. He is a consulting editor for INDICA Today and contributes to the Kannada language pieces. Today, Shivakumar is going to talk about Kula-Jati-Varna, an adaptive societal order based on Rita for an optimal pursuit of Purushartha. Over to you, Shivakumarji.
He's also the chief curator of Arya, an anthology of Vedic women. You can mention that.
Yeah, he in his background, probably you are able to see a book called Arya. It is an anthology of significant Vedic women stories. It's an anthology of stories of Vedic women. It is now getting a lot of traction all over the world. Now, over to you, Shivakumar.
धन्यवाद नागराज गारू. श्रीनिवास जी. Thank you. Namaste. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. In this presentation, in the morning, actually, I saw an interesting presentation by Shri Nitin, my friend, Nitin Sridhar, on the ritualistic dimension of, Kula-Jati-Varna. I will present the other dimension. It's a kind of, social theory on Kula-Jati-Varna based on the Purushartha. We'll do a quick glance of the fundamentals. We know that Varna, it's a concept that has been throughout there, starting from the Vedas. You will find it everywhere. And we briefly know what a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra stands for. The Brahmana is the anchor for the dharmic path to seek moksha, while the Kshatriya anchors power and protection of dharma, and the Vaishya creates the material, wealth. The Shudra offers services, and there are various versions of it that we are all aware of. At the outset, there should have been no problem at all with this. In some sense, if you look at any society anywhere in the world, you will find these elements. Even at the level of a Brahmana, at the level of a priest, you will easily find in all ancient communities. Although the elevation of that and the ability to anchor the sacred like the Brahmana, you will not find it elsewhere. But where Bharatiya Parampara differs is the sophistication with which this was carved, the interrelationships, hierarchies, opportunities, and constraints that is associated with it. That is where, we are very different, and we'll try to understand that from a social dimension. Next slide, please. So it is the birth-based dimension of the Jati and the Varna that is, of concern and controversy today. For centuries, it has been largely birth-based. Anybody trying to, say anything else is not closer to the truth. Yet, when we look at our texts, you will see that, the engagement with Varna is different. In the Purusha Sukta, for instance, and there all four Varnas are referred to. but the birth-based dimension is not pressed upon. Whereas in the Smritis, they are very categorical. The Itihasa Puranas, the Mahakavyas, present very complex narratives of Varna. Anybody who has read Mahabharata will know, the extent of difference between Shanti Parva and, Ajagara Parva. In any case, achieving consistency is not the objective of the Mahakavyas, because they are explaining various dimensions of it. And, to carve a social theory out of that may or may not be possible through that. Suffice it to say that Varna being birth-based is a significant reality. But to go a step further, we can easily say that each Varna consists of many Jatis, and Jati itself is a birth-based reality. And association with the Varna is nothing but a consequence of being born in a Jati. Anyway, next slide, please. So what are some modern problems? So let's gain a grasp of that before moving to the subsequent slides. There are several people who perceive that it is disadvantageous to be born in a specific Jati Varna and the constraints and the restrictions. So irrespective of what it was in the past, today, and whoever is responsible for it, today that perception exists, and for whatever reasons you can consider that. There is perceived injustice in the very organization. Many people think of it that way. It's a perceived injustice. Many other social evils, we have begun to explain it through Jati Varna, and that is the real challenge that we have today. Of course, the colonial narratives have played a huge role, not just narratives, but colonial changes affected have played a huge role in the development of this perception. We may not agree with it, but we have to deal with this reality today. So from modernity standpoint, it is one step further. By definition, exclusive and restricted access to anything, to anybody, is fundamentally denying, somebody something. So you have a, fundamental ideological problem that the modernity, poses, and there are associated problems with it. What is worse is all this is now getting blamed upon, a diabolical plot of the Brahmanas to institutionalize exploitation and so on and so forth. So that is the complex situation that we are in. Of course, with state becoming stronger and the communities further weakening, and professions moving out of communities into the common universal space, all the above problems stated have further escalated themselves. Next slide, please. So let's try and get a grasp of the Kula-Jati-Varna order, from our standpoint. So I'm using the word order rather than a strict structure of the organization for a specific reason. So in the Bharatiya Parampara, systems usually organically evolve grounds up, but gradually they evolve further through thought and design. So there is a top-down, bottom-up engagement. And there is a philosophy that is always guiding this, bottom-up evolution. So what is that philosophy that's, shaping Kula-Jati-Varna? Let's take a step back and look at the core concerns of our texts. The core concerns of most of our texts, whether it is the Mahakavya, Mahabharata, or anything else, is usually the Purushartha. Of course, Kula-Jati-Varna narratives come in that, but the larger exploration is what is the risk that Dharma stands from the, Arthakama going ori. That is the, concern, and what is its impact on moksha, and how is the Brahmana important in this context, and within that the Varna conversation is placed, and it is not to emphasize a social order, but to protect the ability of the society to seek moksha and live by the spirit of the Purushartha. So that is how most texts will see. Some critical questions then. So is Varna Vyavastha, not the Varna as an association with the individual? Is Vyavastha being based on Varna? Is it so fundamental to our civilization? Is it birth-based? Why was it birth-based if that was so for a long time? Subsequent questions. Is it possible to live by the spirit of Purushartha without the birth-based Varna Vyavastha? That is the real question. If so, what is that new Vyavastha that we must seek and evolve? So the perspective of this presentation I am putting forth very clearly in the beginning itself. The KJV order is a consequence of the Purushartha order. I'm talking about the social order. The KJV social order is an enabler of the Purushartha. The KJV order is the most optimal order as an enabler of the Purushartha, but it is possible to view it as not fundamental, and it is possible to at least theoretically imagine a society without a strict, birth-based order, but it's very difficult to realize that. So that is what is the, stand of this presentation. Next slide, please. So we'll take one step further backward and understand the larger Vedic cosmology on which the KJV stands. This I have explained in a previous presentation and paper of mine on Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, and I will briefly summarize that. So here it is necessary to state that the dynamic of the individual, which is Purushartha, needs to be married with the dynamic of the overall universe, which is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, which is explained in every Purana in the beginning sections. So according to this, the universe must always be in Sthiti. And what is Sthiti? It is the state which is dynamic but in stable equilibrium. This means the universe is in constant motion, but in each motion we strive it to be in a stable equilibrium. What is Rita? Rita is that universal principles of the cosmic order that if you comply with, the universe will always be in Sthiti. So what is Srishti then? Srishti is the dynamic component of this Sthiti. So Srishti determines how Sthiti moves from one point to another point. And as long as that is according to the Rita, it is going to be in Sthiti. Otherwise, it kind of goes Ori, and then we keep bringing back, and that's what you see in the Puranic stories. Srishti, what is Srishti is to the universe, double is to Arthakama is to the individual. That is the equivalent. The individual equivalent of the universe's Srishti is Arthakama. When we pursue our Arthakama, universe moves, universe performs its Srishti and moves from one point to another point. But as I said, Srishti can go Ori. What is the role of Dharma? Dharma is that which gives us the collective of actions to comply with Rita. And Moksha is that state when we are in constant Sthiti, when we attain Sthiti. So that is the equivalence that the Purushartha, between the Purushartha and the Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. Now, fine, if this is the overall perspective of life for the individual and the universe, then there ought to be some social architecture that enables the pursuit of Purushartha. And what is that? We'll see the next slide. Next slide, please. So what is the architecture? We'll list a set of requirements that help us pursue Purushartha, and then figure out how Kula-Jati-Varna, complies with that. So any architecture that pursues, that enables Purushartha must provide for an equal opportunity for everybody's Arthakama to be pursued, if not fulfilled. That alone ensures justice in the system, and the civilization does not go Ori, because everybody has an equal access to pursue that. So a civilization must provide for equal opportunity in critical set of parameters. You can't do it in everything. And that critical set, Bharatiya Parampara has defined it as Purushartha. Elsewhere, there may be no equality, but in the pursuit of the Purushartha, there will be equality. So the architecture must also ensure that Arthakama pursuit is bare minimum, because universe is not infinite in its resources. So while giving this opportunity for everybody to pursue Purushartha, still it has to limit Arthakama. That is the second requirement. So this translates into, with respect to Purushartha, 4 specific requirements where it enables one to fulfill the Arthakama of self. 2, it enables one to serve the fulfillment of Arthakama of others. One must contribute. 3, all of this still does not come in the way of one's seeking of moksha. 4, it does not come in the way of others seeking of moksha. These 4 requirements have to be met in any social order that seeks to enable maximum Purushartha. So fundamentally, it's what we are setting is a framework, an order that limits Srishti so that Purushartha for all is maximized and so that there is equal opportunity for everybody to pursue Purushartha. Now, how do we achieve this? Next slide, please. So in this presentation, my emphasis is that Kula-Jati-Varna is that architecture that maximizes Purushartha. It has evolved from the very framework of the Purushartha and Srishti Sthiti Laya, from the cosmology and the goals for the individual within that cosmology. As a consequence, KJV order is an enabler. It is possible to view it as an enabler rather than a fundamental tattva. Although many people disagree on this. Many people consider this as a fundamental as well. While my position is that it is an enabler, but it is the most optimal. There is a lot of difference between something being the most fundamental and the most optimal. So now we will explore the first 2 points. How are we saying that max Purushartha is possible through KJV and how it has evolved from the Purushartha? Step by step, let's see. Next slide, please. So this is, the Kula-Jati. We saw that, Purushartha and Arthakama and Srishti are equivalents. And this association of Srishti with Kula-Jati-Varna is what will bring it, the alignment that I'm explaining in the previous slides. So Bharatiya Parampara associates every single person in the society uniquely with one aspect of Srishti. What does that mean? So essentially this means that every single person indulges in the creation or the Srishti of exactly one aspect of life. Note that Srishti is an element of Sthiti, so it is fundamental. So that way we are associating every individual with a fundamental dimension of life, that is Srishti, that is creation of something that must constantly go on. Which means everybody must create something in life. And the purpose of this is to build a system of creation that can be limited from within internally, so that Arthakama pursuit does not go awry. Meaning, it must be, this limiting should still be fulfilling for the self, fulfilling for the dependent, fulfilling for those who are related by blood in the vicinity, fulfilling for all who will be impacted by the process of creation. So that is people who are associated. Fundamentally, it is the first circle of people for any given person. So if the above stringent rules are to be satisfied, then it is very essential that the creating person is closely associated and is living with these people in order to minimize the complexity of what? Fulfilling the above 4 constraints. So fundamentally what we are saying is that unless people performing the same Srishti are living together, it's extremely difficult for these stringent conditions to be met. So the most efficient and the least complex way of achieving this is that the act of creation is fully integrated to the other acts which are dharma and moksha. So artha and kama being fully aligned for all who are performing the same Srishti and they live within and close by. So all in the first circle contribute in a similar way to a process of creation. Next slide, please. So what is that? That is the Kula. Kula ensures that the Arthakama are restricted from within a community, but efficiently directed towards moksha through dharma. However, artha, which is security and wealth and everything else by one kula, can clash with the same of other kulas. Between kulas, there can be competition. Consequently, it can lead to excessive srishti and so on. So how do we reduce this inter-kula competition? And that is where the jati comes in. So the disorder due to this competition is reduced by bringing similar kulas. Note the emphasis on similar kulas into a larger aggregation. And that aggregation has always been loose in India's past. And in the post-colonial era, this aggregation has become stronger, and that is the root cause of many a problem, but outside the scope of this presentation. So the disorder due to this competition between kulas is reduced by integrating them into a single path of pursuit of moksha. So this fundamentally leads to an aggregation of similar kulas, which is called jati or a community in the Bharatiya Parampara. So thus we have a social organization basis based on Purushartha and Srishti aligned with Sthiti for the Kula and Jati. Next slide, please. So now let us explain what Bharatiya Parampara achieves at a finesse level through Jati and Kula. So fundamentally, it seeks to achieve a social organization unit of life within which the following important things can be realized: a unique set of practices and a path, definite path of realizing moksha, so shared by kulas and jatis. A unique set of practices through which the entire unit seeks arthakama, because a shared set of practices for arthakama limits competition. A unique set of practices for a community, common community life that brings a sense of cooperation to limit competition. A unique set of guidelines to interface with other units to contribute to others' artha and kama. And finally, a set of practices that realize beauty at every step in this life, daily to yearly to monthly and so on, so that everything else becomes sustainable. So, thus, excellence in Srishti got translated into experience of beauty in daily life. And this efficient organization is possible only through a community, and that community has to be a smallest unit of Kula and an aggregated unit of Jati. Otherwise, this integrated Purushartha and with these unique practices and the pursuit of moksha is impossible if you split the society into individuals. Next slide, please. Further emphasizing, it's a given that people are born in various parts of the world with geographies and climate, space and time, which means that different people are at different distances from Sthiti. Imagine Sthiti as a navigation in the universe, in space. Different people are at different distances from the perfect Sthiti. Hence, they have to perform different Srishti. Hence, all people with various different Srishtis cannot be aggregated into one unit. People who are performing similar Srishti alone need to be aggregated into Kulas and Jatis. And there will always be people performing different Srishtis, nature of the universe. Hence, the aggregation cannot be too high and too low. So that is why we have Kulas, which are the most tightest aggregations, and Jatis, which are slightly more looser aggregations. So it must have a loose aggregation with other units and Kulas that are performing similar Jati. So fundamentally, whether it is a Kula or a Jati, the following will be uniquely shared by all members of that aggregation. What are those? What I perform to serve my own arthakama, what I perform to serve others' arthakama, and what I perform to seek moksha. Fundamentally, in modern terminology, you can say that a Kula tightly and a Jati loosely shares the following 5 components: a set of performances, a set of consumption. Consumption means not just what we eat or see, but what we possess also. A set of aesthetics which tempers these performances and consumptions, so that they are limit, a set of rituals that ensure that performances and consumptions don't go into an infinite loop, and realigns them to the sacred journeys. And then finally, a set of sacred journeys. These 5 things are shared by a Kula and Jati for a optimal pursuit of the Purushartha. Now, these 5 are very critical. No community can be there, without these 5. In the Bharatiya Parampara, the aesthetics and the rituals are well defined to realign the performances and consumption to the sacred journey. In many societies, there are only performances and consumptions. The other 3 dimensions are very, very loosely exist. So, where does Varna come into picture in all this? Now, for all this to sustain, all these things must be built around a single thing. We saw that if our lives revolve around a single thing within a community, then everything can be organized in an efficient manner. Okay. Now, all of this still does not explain Varna, but the Varna further aggregates multiple jatis which are similar into a much higher order aggregation, and ensures that there is a greater dynamic of engagement between all of them. Plus, it ensures that the ritual dimension and the sacred dimension are differently aligned for each of those jatis that are similar.
Shivavre, I think you're approaching your winding up, right?
Yeah. Last 2 slides.
And they will take 2 minutes.
Yeah. I will next 2 minutes. I will close it.
Okay.
So what the Varna does is that it ensures that there is a dynamic between the jati, and also ensures that the ritualistic dimension is optimally defined for similar jatis. Otherwise, with the jati explosion, it gets too much of diversity. The Varna reduces the diversity and anchors it at 4 levels, builds a similar set of rituals, builds a shared set of Arthakama interfaces, ensures that the pursuit of the moksha is significantly shared, and where the Kulas and the Jatis create exclusive spaces, Varna actually integrates them into a single larger unit. So thus, you have an organization, an order where at 3 different levels, the pursuit of the Purushartha is optimized and designed equally for different Srishtis. Since everybody has an exclusive Srishti space, everybody has an exclusive set of performance, consumption, aesthetic, ritual, and sacred journeys. Even through differentiation, a different kind of inequality is achieved. Thus, to understand the social dimension of Kula-Jati-Varna, it is very essential to understand why Purushartha is the most fundamental element of Bharatiya Parampara, and how Kula-Jati-Varna and how Srishti, Sthiti, Laya imagination plays a very critical role, and how Kula-Jati-Varna is standing on this very firm cosmology. Of course, things do deteriorate. Exploitation comes, exploitation goes, but in reality, until 1800, we have not seen too much conflict, because this has worked really very well. That's why you will see more atrocity cases, narrated post 1800 and very less, before that. Dhanyavad, Dr. Nagaraj, for this opportunity. Look forward to taking any questions. I have some more slides, but I will let go of that in the interest of time.
No, you may just briefly cover those slides also.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Briefly.
I will touch upon.
Touch upon the 1 or 2 sentences.
1 or 2 sentences. Yes. Srinivas ji. It's not visible. Srinivas ji, kuch to gadbad hai. I'm not able to see.
శ్రీనివాస్ గారు స్లైడ్ షో అయింది, పీపీటీ షేర్ చేయండి. If it is taking too much time, let us move on to the next speaker. Okay. Yeah, please go to the last 2-3 slides.
Yeah, last 3 slides. Yeah, please go to the 21 or 19, 20, please. So then, we have a problem today in 3 ways. One, fundamental thing is that the communities had to own professions for the Kula-Jati-Varna to move forward smoothly. But modernity and the industrial dynamic has come and disrupted this very strongly. So then what then is the future of the Kula-Jati-Varna? So my proposition is that the Kula-Jati-Varna of the future will be very difficult, cannot be, while the Varna is a fundamental reality of life, that is associated with an individual. But computation of Varna will become extremely difficult, where, family traditions have also weakened and the entire professions have moved into modern institutions, which do not have the same community character that we saw in the KJV order. So this is the harsh truth that we have to face. So we are always anchoring it too much in the ritualistic dimension, ignoring that the ritual is actually anchored on a specific context. And that is why you see different Brahmana Kulas also having different set of rituals. Now that the context of the home and the community has shifted to modern institutions, it is necessary for the modern institutions to acquire some, Varna characteristic. Otherwise, you will have a 80% space without any Varna characteristic. And you will anchor the society in 20% in the KJV order, thinking that you can, hold on to that for a long time. You cannot. Over a period of time, it will deteriorate further and you will have nothing. Next slide, please. So what I suggest is there ought to be an outward movement towards modern institutions. Modern institutions have to be re-anchored on Purushartha, which means a set of performances, consumption, and rituals and sacred journeys associated with modern institutions. It's not impossible to define that. And the other dynamic is that the Varna has to also fold into every Jati to some extent to increase the dynamic, which was always so. Varna is a fractal reality. Overall society would be anchored based on, the Chaturvida Purushartha, the Chaturvarnya. But within each community also, you would have, a reflection of the Chaturvarnya. And that dimension, given the fact that now you have excessive aggregation of Kulas and Jatis into one larger Jati, you will have to bring it in so that you have a new order that emerges out of that. So without some significant reimagination, I don't think we will be able to seamlessly move forward. Otherwise, we'll just academically keep on anchoring this. This is the summary of my presentation. And there is a detailed elaborate paper on this on INDICA today.
Thank you, Shivakumar ji. All the talks that are presented here will be published on INDICA today. Even this paper is going to be published on INDICA today. Please follow it there. INDICA today is our online semi-academic journal cum magazine. Please follow INDICA today. There you will see this.